Thank you for staying tuned. As we promised tonight, we're talking about the revenue sharing formula, in particular that revenue sharing formula that senators have from time and time again failed to pass. It seems that it has hit a stall. We're having Irene Otieno, who is a coordinator in the National Taxpayers Association. Welcome, Irene.
Thanks, Irene, for having me.
Okay, my namesake, of course, they're Irene and Irene. We're really glad that you made time, of course, to come so that we can discuss this particular revenue sharing formula. And first, I would love to say that Kenyans are sort of growing wary of the push and pull when it comes to this particular formula. Time and time again, senators have sort of not agreed on this particular issue. Do you think this protracted battle concerning this particular revenue sharing formula is now becoming a tired order as it is?
True, you've mentioned what most citizens and taxpayers in Kenya are concerned because of what would seem like a protracted push and shove between senators from the different divides and the different counties. But I would say the conversation coming out of it is quite a healthy debate. Then it makes us look inwards and see how is it that we share the national cake, so to speak. So the only challenge for me then would be the conversation is coming at a time that does not give enough room for that discourse. And having known that the Commission on Revenue Allocation tabled the formula quite early.
Last year.
So this conversation would have gotten better and deeper insights and feedback, and even for the people who actually contribute to that resource we are speaking to, we as the taxpayers would then be able to weigh in. So just to say that it's a healthy debate, but the timing is a bit wrong. Senate should have anticipated how emotive this conversation would have been, and so given it enough time by starting the debate a bit earlier.
All right. Now, once we focus on the formula itself, what we're having the senators sort of not agree about is the issue of population versus poverty index and the issue of huge landmass. We're having now counties like Turkana and Mandera who are given more allocation as per the second formula. It is done that through the parameter of huge landmass and the issue of poverty index, because Turkana and Mandera are some of the counties which have the most poorest people, so to speak. Now, from where you sit and looking at this particular situation, the way senators are arguing, should we now move to the population sort of parameter in terms of giving the counties that have a huge population more funds? Now that means that Nairobi and Kiambu counties, should we now move that direction, or should we now focus on these counties that are so quote-unquote marginalized?
First to say that indeed this is the third formula that we are trying to have a conversation about. So we've had two formulas, and if you could see, for me, I think it's a bit premature to want to move and say, let us now focus more on population, simply, and then saying that there are areas that then have such a large population, and so they are getting shortchanged, so to speak. But remember that the counties that have been marginalized since 1964, since independence. So the formulas that we've had, even the last, have not even done a total of 10 years. So for us, sections of Kenya, and then to say we are tired of carrying the burden of the marginalized counties should not arise, because they have been marginalized for more, almost 5 times the conversation we're having right now. So I think it's also our, in all fairness, without even looking at first the deeper parameters, at face value, it would obviously take a long time first to bring them to the level where the other counties are, because it has taken us a very long time to continue marginalizing them. So then we need to look at it in that perspective. But again, I would agree that what CRA, and I know that CRA is a very credible institution. The sad bit is that the courts pronounced themselves and said that the CRA's formula is simply persuasive, but it does not have, is really not cast in stone, that Senate has to adopt it. So that's what the court mentioned, that they will only say this is the way we are directing as a professional entity, but then the political bit would then come in. So CRA had consulted widely from professionals, from county council of governors and the likes. And so there's also value in looking at that formula. But again, we agree that population is a critical thing, because in terms of devolution, what we are looking at is service to Mwananchi. And service to Mwananchi, again, you can only do it when you have resources. However, what I'm seeing that counties are missing the point is, again, the issues of own source revenue. Remember that the more people you have, the more taxes you as a county can, and so you get more resources. if we are simply to compare based on population, what type of taxes are available to, say, Turkana and Marsabit? We have done so much rural-urban migration. They do not have enough people to tax even if they wanted to. So as we look at this formula, let us remember that the counties that would seem to lose out, as people have tagged it as losing out, also have a serious own source revenue that then would be able to plug what they think they are losing out when they even seal the loopholes, because the controller of budget has mentioned that most counties are not giving what they need to bring to the table in terms of on-source revenue. So this conversation should also be matched with that discussion. You should not only be looking at how much you're getting as the equitable share, because we did not bring counties just to pump money in them. Remember, the recurrent expenditure is quite huge from these counties. So it's time that the taxpayers get value from it. And the only value we can get is when we also see what they are bringing in as counties through on-source revenue. So let us balance both the equitable share discussion alongside the on-source revenue that then these counties must bring to the table.
All right. Now, talking about the formula itself, I think yesterday the National Treasury, the Controller of Budget, the Solicitor General, and of course the Commission of Revenue Allocation had a meeting. And the chairperson of that particular of CRA, Kiringai, talked about when they created this particular formula, in their minds, they thought that the allocation for counties will be increased. There was that discussion about the Division of Revenue Bill, and they had talked about increasing that particular, the funds being given to the counties. But of course, there was a stalemate concerning that issue. Remember, the legislators and the senators could not sort of agree. Do you think this formula can be good if we allocate more funds to the county moving forward? Is it a formula that we can, of course, recommend if the national cake, of course, is increased when it comes to sharing to the counties?
Yes, I think the conversation that both these different interest group and stakeholders had yesterday was a very instrumental and a very instructive conversation. And at the basis, as CRA said, there was an assumption that the allocations to county would have gone higher. But obviously, because first of COVID-19, which then has shown, KRA has already alluded to the fact that its revenue has dipped, then you see that that conversation of giving more to the counties wouldn't be tenable anyway. So looking at even the conversations at Senate then, as they're trying to meet the, midway, what they're mentioning is that the formula should apply over and above the 316. So when the revenue becomes more, but we don't know when that will happen. What obviously we've been posting poor revenue. So unless in the midterm, let's say after around 3 years is when I would project our revenues would have gone a bit higher, because we are still battling low cost, we still have drought, with the issues around now COVID-19. So before the economy bounces back and there's economic activity within the communities that then would increase revenue, that would be around 2 or 3. And so that also brings the conversation that I think Kangata was bringing to the floor of the House, that let us wait for, say, 2 years before this takes effect. My thinking is maybe 2 or 3, so that then the revenues would have come up. Then also the bit that Sakaja and team are bringing to the table, saying then you do not make any county lose. Let us go with all the allocations that each county had in 2019, 2020. We leave that as it is, but over and above 316, then that formula can apply. So I think that is trying to get a middle and a safe ground, but would still have its challenges.
All right. Now, when we look at the first and the second formula, of course it was meant to focus on the marginalized counties, but some have questioned the accountability. Now, 7 years after, what are we seeing in Turkana in terms of development? What are we seeing in Mandara in terms of development? Instead of pushing for more funds to be allocated to the marginalized counties, is it about time now we question the accountability question, and question whether really, even if we're giving them more, are they really catching up with these other counties? Is it about time we question that?
I would want to separate the two issues. So for me, the formula should be delinked from the accountability, but not losing sight of the accountability, because the accountability, as you've rightly said, is very critical. But there are principles of public finance that we as a nation, in our constitution and the Public Financial Management Act, have provided, and a key part of it is equity. So we are saying that we must not leave any part of the country or the people behind as we develop. So those principles cannot be vacated, whether there's accountability or no accountability. So for me, the lack of accountability is not is not directly linked to the formula. So in terms of accountability, that we should let the people who elected the politician in Turkana tell us why they are not demanding for services. And true, I have had opportunity at looking at the Turkana Auditor General's reports.
Yes,
They're really sad. It's a sad state of affairs. But that should be something then we bring and say, what are the investigative agencies doing? Because the audit report has clearly said money has been wasted. What are the county assemblies at that level doing? We've seen a lot of county assemblies, unfortunately, talking about simply impeaching, and impeaching, but on what grounds? Very flimsy grounds. I would say the first ground we would want to see is, have county assemblies interrogated the audit reports for each county? Have they then told DCI and ESDC move in and try and find out these issues? So yeah, to say that, because even if we say that Turkana probably has accountability issues, it's the same accountability issues that would be in Kiambu and Nairobi. So then you would either say, for me anyway, I would actually say this conversation, as you've said, most citizens have become too tired. They really wouldn't mind to say whether the money goes at national level, so much of it, whether it says at county, it really does not trickle down to most Mwananchi. So that is the big challenge we need to address, that right now it would seem, I think that citizens and service deliveries are being thrown in there to fast track that conversation. But at the end of the day, the budgets of these institutions never show anything for Mwananchi. Look at the foreign travels. Look at the type of, the recurrent expenditure. And the recurrent, really, if you see with the high unemployment in Kenya, you then ask, who are these being employed? And if you query it further, you will find a huge part is on allowances. So allowances for our executive members, allowances for our county assembly members to go for foreign trips. So for me, this it's a bit misplaced when they're now talking about services to Mwananchi. Let us then see budgets that reflect services to Mwananchi. Then we'd be able to rally behind either parties.
All right, Irene, there's some who have said that where we go wrong, when it comes to the issue of sharing revenue to counties, is in the budget-making process. It is something that the Senator for Bungoma, Moses Otangula, alluded before the Senate today, saying that we should focus on how much money is being given to the counties. For example, in the budget-making process, we have the executive receive 3 trillion, and then what is going to the counties is 316 billion. Is it about time now we question how the national cake is being shared to the counties? Because that might be where the problem starts.
True, the problems are many, as you've said, but the senator mentioned it and said it very well. There are very many functions that have been devolved to counties, but a lot of money is still held at a national level. And there has been a lot of corruption. Looking at the last 2 days only, looking at how COVID-19 resources have been managed, and that is squarely at a national level management right now for disaster management, as it is right now. So I would agree with him that we need to query, why do we leave a lot of money at the central, at the national level, and give very insignificant resources to county, and that is where service delivery happens. So in a sense, I would say it's setting up the counties for failure, and so that needs to be relooked at. So as an institution, as National Taxpayers Association, we do associate ourselves with the comments that you have mentioned, that let us have more resources being given to the counties, and then we make demands as citizens for more accountability on these resources. Because again, if we still get a lot of money to the counties, with the levels of corruption that we still see, it will not translate into anything significant for Mwananchi. So yes, we push for more resources to the counties, but also match it with the conversation around accountability. All right.
At this particular time, guys are talking about the Building Bridges Initiative report. They are saying that once that report comes into place, counties will be having more allocation in terms of moving from 15% to 45%. But is it really feasible in a country where, when it comes to taxes, in terms of collecting taxes, KRA creates a shortfall time and again? A country where we're having huge sort of loans, the country taking up more loans, and you're having the issue of more loans being taken by the National Treasury. The impact of moving the allocation from 15% to 45%, is it feasible, or is it just a political lie, so to speak?
It is something that we must push to have it in law, because right now, indeed, the Constitution mentions a minimum of 15%. So then you can get 15% or over and above. So that then becomes at the discretion of Treasury and the national government, what they deem fit. So even what they've already giving to counties, which is more than 15, you're not sure when they will take it back and say, hey, for whatever reasons we then want to give, so long as we're giving you the minimum threshold constitutionally, that is 15%. So in terms of that, yes, we can be able to do it. I do not see why it would be an issue, because it would be 45% of whatever revenue we have. But then the bigger question, as then you've said, you might get 45% of, say, 10,000, which would never make sense. So the concern is, how do we ensure that there's enough economic activities? How do we not, as a country, how do we promote first local enterprises, ensure that counties are producing? We have relooked at our education structure so that TVETs are coming up, technical vocational training centers are coming up to reduce on unemployment and to ensure that a lot of our youth and women are involved in economic activities. Then when you do that, you, in a sense, provide room where then Kenya Revenue Authority can tax and expand that national cake, so that if you get 45%, it then becomes 45% of a significant. But we are not ignorant of the fact that national government will fight this tooth and nail. So that is something that I think senators, and it would be one of the good things, as they call themselves the upper house, it would be one good thing for us then to say, Senate has pushed and we're having 45% of total revenue to Kenya going to the counties, because that is where that resources is needed most.
All right. Thank you so much, Irene, for that particular insight. Of course, you're pressed on time, but I would want you to mention whether there will come a time whereby we'll be having a win-win formula, so to speak, or the perfect revenue sharing formula in a country whereby we're talking about marginalized counties, we're talking about the population, we're talking about increasing the revenue. Is there a time we'll be talking about the perfect revenue sharing formula?
I hate to be a pessimist, but I doubt whether there's any time we'll be able to get that, because society has very many different interests, and so what one would say is good would be something so wrong for another person. But not to say that it's something that we should not attempt to do. So generally, I would say it's not easy, but that should not dampen our resolve to try and do it. But however, to also say that we as a country needs to look at other creative ways to finance and provide services to Kenyans, even outside the budget, the entire budget process. And I would give you an example. So you see other developed countries have what they call the sovereign fund. So this is a fund that from your natural resources, say you have extractives, you have what we thought we had, petroleum, and now we hear that we no longer have, it's not a viable thing. So to the other extractives and minerals that we have, then you say that a part of this financing, 10 or whatever % of it will be going to what we call the sovereign fund. So this is a fund that even when we have already depleted those resources, it's something that posterity will be able to say, hey, Kenya was once mining this, and this is what our children get. So first to say, let us look at sovereign wealth fund. Let us look at the issues of PPP, public-private partnerships. If we noticed this new Finance Act of 2020, is it 2020? We are now in 2020, 2021. The Finance Act then brought the issues of the tolling system, where then they are saying for mega development projects, a government will not go into its budget where they do not know how much revenue they will get and issues like that, but get a private developer to do it. But yes,
they get their share.
Get the share. The only caution would say is it can go really wrong as the county medical equipment has gone, where you're telling counties to pay, but they have never received some of these things. Some of these things are not working. So if we try to cushion ourselves and as a country take advice from professionals such as the Attorney General when we are contracting, then we'll be able to safeguard ourselves. But there are creative ways that government must look at to finance development.
All right. Thank you so much, Irene Otieno, of course, for making time and giving us an insight concerning the revenue sharing formula. We'll be, of course, expect to have the discussion concerning this, of course, given that the Senate is supposed to meet next Tuesday to debate on the amendment by Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja. Whether it will pass or not is still a matter that is still going to be debated, and of course whether they will agree in terms of making negotiation concerning that particular revenue sharing formula. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Happy to have been here.
All right. Now